October 14th, 2014. Route 77, 2 miles south of Mill Creek, Arizona. The storm came down like God punishing the desert. Thatcher Kane's hands shook on the reins. They'd been shaking for 3 years. Ever since the night his wife Elena died because he froze instead of calling 911 fast enough. The phone had been right there. His fingers wouldn't stop trembling long enough to dial. Tonight, driving home from the evening market, those same hands gripped leather, worn smooth by a decade of use. Mayor his mare knew the road home better than Thatcher knew his own reflection. She could walk it blind. Usually did while Thatcher's mind wandered to places a man's mind shouldn't go at night. To hospital rooms, to Elena's last breath, to his daughter Lark, 8 years old, sleeping 2 miles ahead in a house that still smelled like her mother's lavender soap. The rain hit the wagon canvas like bullets. Mayor's ears went flat. Thatcher felt it through the reins. That sudden shift, the way a horse moves when something's wrong. Not spooked, worse, certain. Her nostrils working against the rain, pulling information from air that smelled like creosote and copper. He tried to pull her back. She refused, not panicked, insistent. Pointing with her whole body towards something on the road's edge, half in the drainage ditch, invisible until the lightning made everything white. The shape was wrong. Green jacket, dark hair plastered to skull, brown skin slick with rain and something darker. One hand still gripping a broken blade, the other pressed to ribs that moved wrong like something inside had come loose. Thatcher thought about his daughter sleeping 2 miles north. Thought about his forge and his small, careful life. Thought about every reason a man doesn't stop on a desert road in a thunderstorm for a bleeding stranger. Then he climbed down. She was young, early 20s, Latina maybe, or native. Hard to tell with that much blood. The wound was deep, a gunshot straight through the ribs, the kind that opens skin and muscle in a way that doesn't close on its own. Old blood, but still leaking. She was breathing, barely. The kind of breathing that sounds like the body's losing an argument with itself. Thatcher pressed his coat against the wound, lifted her toward the wagon. She was heavy, bone-dense, solid muscle under shock-cold skin. His back screamed. He managed it on the third try, his fingers shaking so hard he nearly dropped her twice. Mayor turned for home without being asked. The town knew Thatcher Kane as the man who couldn't fix his own roof. The blacksmith whose hands trembled too much for fine work. The widower who'd let his wife die rather than make a decision fast enough. Tonight, he was the man carrying a bleeding stranger through a thunderstorm because the alternative was leaving her to die in a ditch. He didn't know her name, didn't know why she'd been shot, didn't know that saving her would cost him everything he'd spent 3 years trying to protect. The only thing Thatcher Kane knew for certain was this: his hands were shaking, his back was on fire, and 2 miles ahead, his daughter would ask questions he couldn't answer. Some choices you make with your head, some you make with your gut. This one Thatcher made with his hands. Even though they shook, even though they'd failed him before, he made it anyway. Lark wasn't asleep. She never was. Not when her father went to town. Not when the house creaked in wind. Not since the night 3 years ago when she'd woken to find her mother's bed empty and her father sitting at the kitchen table, hands covering his face, making sounds an 8-year-old shouldn't have to hear. Now she sat at the top of the stairs in her nightgown, legs dangling through the railing, a piece of dried apple clutched in one small fist. She heard the wagon before she saw it, heard Mayor's hooves on gravel, the particular rhythm that meant home-safe father returning. Then the front door opened. Her father came through carrying something large and dark that dripped water onto floorboards her mother had sanded smooth with her own hands. He laid it on the kitchen table. The table groaned. Lark came down 3 steps, stopped. Green jacket over brown skin, dark hair, gritted teeth pressing against a split lower lip gone gray with shock. Not a monster from Mr. Hadley's stories. A woman, bleeding, on their table. "Dad," Lark said, "there's a person on our table." Thatcher didn't turn around. His hands were already moving, stripping the wet jacket, pressing clean cloth to the wound that wouldn't stop seeping. "I know. A bleeding person on Mom's table." The words landed somewhere in Thatcher's chest and stayed there. Mom's table. Pine wood. Elena had sanded it herself, treated it with linseed oil, carved both their initials underneath where no one could see. It was still Elena's table. Everything in this house was still Elena's. "I know whose table this is," Thatcher said, his voice rough. "Go upstairs." Lark came down the rest of the stairs instead. She didn't scream. That was the thing about Lark that sometimes scared Thatcher more than anything else. She'd stopped screaming the night her mother died. Now she just looked at things the way you look at stray animals and broken fences. deciding whether to fix them or walk away. She approached the table, looked at the woman the way a field surgeon looks at incoming wounded. Clinical, detached, 8 years old and already too old for her age. "That's deep," she said. "Yeah. You'll need stitches." "Yeah. Can you do it?" Thatcher looked at his hands. They were shaking. They'd been shaking since the night Elena got sick, and he couldn't make himself drive to the next town for help fast enough. Not because of drink, not because of age, because of the particular tremor that lives in a man who watched his wife die and couldn't force himself to act when it mattered. When he finally did, he was 2 days too late. The doctor said 2 days wouldn't have made a difference. Thatcher knew that was the kind of lie doctors tell husbands who need to sleep at night. "I'll figure it out," he said. His daughter's eyes measured him, measured the woman, measured the blood and the shaking and the hour and the choice her father had just made. "Mom could do it with her eyes closed," Lark said. "I know. She had that book, the one with the drawings. I know where it is." "Get it then." Lark pulled a chair to the table, settled in. 8 years old, arms crossed, barefoot on cold wood, her face lit green from the oil lamp, not planning to leave at all. "I'll hold the light," she said. "Your hands are doing that thing again." "What thing?" "The shaking. The one that happens when you're scared." "I'm not scared. Dad, I'm 8. I'm not stupid." Thatcher found Elena's book on the third shelf behind the preserves. Hand-stitched leather cover. Every page filled with her careful script. Herbs, medicinals, setting bones, treating fevers. He'd put it there the week after she died and hadn't touched it since. Opening it felt like being struck by lightning. Page 12. Stitching wounds. Step 1, clean the area with boiled water and white vinegar. Step 2, use silk thread if available, linen if not. Step 3. "Dad, she's still bleeding." Thatcher moved. Boiled water. Found the sewing kit. Elena's still in the basket by the fireplace. Not surgical thread, cotton. He threaded the needle. His hand shook so badly the thread missed the eye 4 times. Lark took it from him, threaded it on the first try, handed it back without a word. Thatcher stitched. 14 stitches. Uneven. Too far apart. Nothing like the neat lines Elena used to make. But the bleeding slowed, then stopped. The woman's breathing steadied. Not good, just less like she was about to quit. Her body had decided to keep going. "Your stitches look like a drunk fence," Lark said. "Thank you. I'm being honest." "I said thank you." That wasn't a compliment. Thatcher wrapped the wound in clean cloth. The woman didn't move once, didn't wake, didn't make a sound. Her body had made its decision. Live or die would be settled later. For now, she breathed. Lark watched her father's hands as he worked. Watched the way they trembled. The way they'd trembled when he held the phone that night 3 years ago, unable to make the call fast enough. The way they'd trembled at the funeral when he couldn't even hold his daughter's hand steady. "What's her name?" Lark asked. "Don't know." "Why'd you bring her?" "She was dying." "People die all the time," Lark said with the casual brutality of a child who'd learned it early. "They don't usually get brought home." That landed too. Lark was good at finding the floorboard that creaked and stomping on it with both feet. "She was on the road," Thatcher said. Lark looked at him, then at the woman, then at the blood on his shirt and the rain in his hair and the set of his jaw, like a man who'd made a decision he couldn't explain and wouldn't try. "Okay," she said finally. "She can stay tonight, but if she dies on Mom's table, you're cleaning it up." She went upstairs. Thatcher stood alone in his kitchen with an unconscious stranger and thought, my 8-year-old daughter just gave me permission. He wasn't sure what that said about him or about her. Neither option felt satisfying. The woman woke at dawn. Thatcher had been sitting in the chair by the fireplace. The sound of metal on wood woke him. He opened his eyes to find her upright on the table, a kitchen knife pointed at his throat from 6 feet away. Her eyes were yellow. Not gold. Yellow, like a hawk's eyes calculating distance. "Morning," Thatcher said. "Where?" Her voice came out like gravel. "My house, Mill Creek, Southwest Arizona." "Who else?" "My daughter, upstairs." The knife didn't move. Her eyes swept the room. Door, windows, stairs, calculating exits the way you calculate when exits matter more than conversation. "Door's not locked," Thatcher said. "Latch is broken." "You're a blacksmith who can't fix a latch." "I have priorities." Clearly wrong ones. She looked down at the bandage across her ribs. Clean cloth, uneven stitching, visible through the weave. "You did this." "Yeah, it's terrible." "You were bleeding hard. I had cotton thread and a sewing needle." She stared at him, The knife lowered half an inch. You're not a medic. Blacksmith. You don't look like a man who picks up strangers from roadsides. How's that man look? Braver than you. She was looking at his hands now, the way they rested on the chair arms, the fine tremor that never quite stopped. You're shaking, she said. You are too. She tried to stand. Her knees betrayed her. She caught the table edge. The knife clattered to the floor, her jaw set tight. Not pain. Insult? I'm leaving. You can't walk. I'll manage. In which direction? Blood was seeping through the stitches again. Thatcher pointed at the table. Sit, eat, then leave. But you're reopening my work right now, and I don't want to do it again. I don't owe you anything. Didn't say you did. Humans always think they're owed. This human thinks it's too early to mop blood off his floor. She sat, the chair groaned under her weight. Denser bone, heavier frame. The kind of solid that comes from genetics Thatcher didn't understand and didn't need to. Dessa, she said. What? My name, Soyam. Thatcher. Footsteps on the stairs. Lark appeared in the doorway, fully dressed, hair uncombed, eyes fixed on the woman who was now sitting upright and talking. She's alive, Lark said. Apparently, Thatcher replied. Does she bite? Dessa looked at the 8-year-old child with the kind of assessment usually reserved for worthy opponents. Do you sometimes, Lark said, when people deserve it? We have something in common. Lark sat on the bottom stair, stared at Dessa with the focus that made grown men uncomfortable. Dessa stared back. Neither blinked. Your teeth stick out, Lark said. Your ears are funny. Everyone's ears look like this. Everyone you know, Dessa said. You should travel more. Lark considered this. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Bigger, meaner, more, I don't know, scary. Sorry to disappoint. You talk like a person. Astonishing observation. I mean like someone who reads books, not like the people in Mr. Hadley's stories about, strangers. Mr. Hadley's never met a real stranger. I'd bet money on it. Thatcher watched this exchange from his chair, too tired to intervene, too fascinated to want to. His daughter, the girl who'd barely spoken to neighbor kids in 3 years, the girl who communicated primarily through sarcasm and silence, having a real conversation with a woman she'd met 40 seconds ago, a woman who'd woken up with a knife in her hand and murder in her eyes, now discussing literature and dental structure like they were at a book club. You hungry? Lark asked. I could eat a horse. We only have one horse and she's not available. But there's bread. Bread works. Lark went to the pantry, came back with half a loaf and a jar of preserved plums, set them on the table next to Dessa. The woman tore into the bread one-handed, the other hand staying on her wound. She ate without ceremony. Fast, efficient, the eating of someone who'd learned that meals can be interrupted. When'd you last eat? Thatcher asked. Dessa thought about it. 2 days, maybe 3. I was busy staying alive. Meals seemed secondary. Lark settled on her stare. Dad barely eats either. Is that so? Forgets, I have to remind him. He'd live on black coffee and regret if I let him. Dessa looked at Thatcher. Something moved behind those yellow eyes. Amusement maybe, or recognition. Black coffee and regret, she said. Sounds like a country song. It's not funny. Little bit funny. The first knock came before noon. Thatcher moved Dessa upstairs, to Elena's room. The room he hadn't entered in 3 years. The room where her bed was still met her curtains still drawn, her hairbrush still on the dresser exactly where she'd left it. Carrying Dessa up those stairs while she cursed in Spanish. Or maybe it was something else. A language that sounded like rocks being thrown in a metal bucket. Thatcher felt every one of his 38 years. Stop moving. Stop dropping me. Ewan, I'm not dropping you. I'm redistributing your weight. You're a disgrace to your species. Lark followed behind them, arms outstretched, like she could catch either one if they fell. You're both embarrassing, she announced. Just so you know. Thatcher got Dessa to the floor as the knock came. 3 sharp raps. He went downstairs. Martin Beck stood on the porch. Farmer, 3 acres west, red-faced, broad shoulders, eyes always narrow like a man who didn't trust anything he couldn't plant or kill. Heard you picked something up last night, Beck said. Small towns, information spreads faster than disease. Heard from who? Tommy Aldrin was riding the quarry road this morning, saw blood in the ditch, saw your wagon tracks. Beck looked past Thatcher into the house. Green blood Thatcher. And people are talking. People always talk. That's what people do. Stranger in your house. Your daughter inside. My daughter's fine. Your daughter's 8. My daughter's 8 and smarter than half this town. She'll be fine. Beck's jaw worked. The troubles took my cousin Thatcher. Took a lot of families. Strangers here. It's not just talk. It's feeling. And feelings turn into things. Is that a warning or a threat? Neighbor's advice. Noted. Beck left. Thatcher closed the door to find Lark on the stairs listening. Mister? Beck doesn't like our guest, she said. Mr. Beck doesn't like anything except corn. He'll probably tell everyone. Then everyone will know. And then what? Thatcher didn't answer. Lark came down another step. You always do this, she said. Do what? Stop, and then never get to the part where you actually do something. She went to the kitchen. Thatcher stood in his hallway thinking about how an 8-year-old could cut deeper than any blade that woman upstairs had been carrying. By noon, 3 more people had driven past the house slow. One of them spat in the yard. Thatcher cleaned it without a word. He was good at that, absorbing things, letting them pass through him, standing in their wake. He went upstairs. Dessa sat in the bed looking at Elena's things. The brush, the dried flowers, the reading glasses on the nightstand. 3 years, she said, not a question. You read dust. This isn't grief, this is a museum. Oh, Thatcher had nothing to say to that because it was mostly true. I'll be healed in a week, Dessa said. Then I'll go. Okay. And stop looking at me like I'm something you need to save. I survived on my own. You just happened to be on the road. So we understand each other perfectly. Dessa looked at him, really looked. The kind of looking that sees past skin and bone to the machinery underneath. Small woman in a dead woman's bed telling a blacksmith who couldn't save his wife that she doesn't need saving, she said. Yeah, we understand each other fine. Thatcher went downstairs. Lark was at the kitchen table with a piece of paper and a charcoal pencil. She'd drawn a chart. Inventory. We have food for 2 people for 6 days, she said, not looking up. 3 people cuts it to 4. When'd you learn math? When somebody had to. Thatcher made oatmeal. Full bowl for Lark. Full bowl for Dessa. Black coffee for himself. Lark watched him not eat with the resigned expression of someone who'd fought this argument before. You skip meals so she can eat, Lark said. I'm fine. That's what you said about the well pump in the east wall. It's enough. Famous last words. He took Dessa's bowl upstairs. She ate in silence. When she finished, she said, You can't afford me. Your daughter's doing inventory at the kitchen table. 8-year-olds shouldn't know how to ration food. Lark's not a regular 8-year-old. No, she's an 8-year-old who had to become one because her father couldn't. Dessa stopped, her yellow eyes fixed on him. Some debts don't have numbers, Thatcher. You can't count them. You just carry them. She didn't ask what he was carrying. She knew. A woman bleeding in a dead woman's bed telling a blacksmith the truth his daughter won't speak. The fever came that night. Not Dessa's fever. Lark's. The kind of autumn fever that sweeps through small towns when the well water changes. Dessa smelled it first. Something's wrong with your daughter. Thatcher took the stairs 3 at a time. Lark was in bed, face flushed, burning hot. Her small hand found his. Dad, my chest hurts. Those words. Elena had said them too. The first day. Everyone ignored it. 3 days later, she couldn't stand. Thatcher's hands started shaking harder than they had in 3 years. His whole body remembered what happened last time. This is where you freeze. This is where you wait too long. Dessa appeared in the doorway, leaning on the frame, hand on her wound, barely standing herself. She'd walked across the hall with a gunshot wound not fully healed because she'd heard an 8-year-old cough. Move aside, she said, I can handle it. You're shaking so hard you can't hold a spoon. Move. Thatcher moved. Dessa crossed to the bed, knelt beside Lark with a grunt of pain that she swallowed, put her hand on the girl's forehead, her neck, her chest, listened to the rattle in her lungs. Left side. She looked at Thatcher. Hot water. Book. Your wife's book. Look for lungwort and elderflower. Brown jar. 3rd shelf behind the vinegar. How do you know what's on my shelf? I've spent all day staring at ceilings. I have nothing to do but listen and smell. Your house is an open book. Thatcher ran to the kitchen shelf. Brown jar. Elena's handwriting. Lungwort dried. Autumn harvest. 3 years old. He boiled water. Got everything. Dessa was sitting on Lark's bed, humming a low melody. Strange tune. Not comforting but steady. A rhythm for the body to match its breathing to. Crush the lungwort fine, Dessa said. Mix with elderflower, equal parts. Thatcher did. Pour half the water. Breathe, Dessa said to Lark. Not you, him. She feels your panic. Calm down or leave. Thatcher breathed. The tremor in his fingers lessened. Dessa lifted Lark's head. Drink. Tastes awful, Lark whispered. How awful? Worse than Dad's cooking. That bad. Dessa wrapped Lark's chest with clean cloth. Tight. The practiced wrapping of someone who'd watched a healer work 100 times. You're a healer, Thatcher said. My mother was. I watched. Where's your mother? Dead. The words settled between them. Two people who'd lost the woman who held things together standing on either side of a sick child. Fever breaks by dawn or you go to a doctor, Dessa said. No waiting, no thinking. You go. She was looking at him. At him. Those yellow eyes seeing exactly what he was. I'll go, Thatcher said. I swear. Swear it, not on your pride. On her. On her, Thatcher said. I swear on her. The fever broke before dawn. Lark's breathing eased. She slept. Dessa didn't move, eyes closed. Hand on Lark's chest, feeling every breath. Thank you, Thatcher said. I didn't do it for you. I did it because she's 8 years old and made me bread and didn't scream when she saw my face. That's rare. Dessa looked at him. There's something you need to know. Lark slept. They were in the kitchen, a candle between them. October 15, one day since Thatcher had pulled a bleeding stranger from a ditch. My father is Cormac Rourke, Dessa said. He controls the territory from here to the border. 3 states, more men than you can count. Thatcher's coffee cup stopped halfway to his mouth. Cormac Rourke. Everyone knew the name. The man who controlled smuggling routes, who settled disputes with bullets, whose territory covered 3 states and whose word was law in places the law didn't reach. You're Rourke's daughter. Only daughter, only child. Her voice was dry, matter of fact, delivering information without asking for reaction. He promised me to Vargas. Marriage alliance. 2 territories become 1. Strong enough to control everything from here to the coast. Promised you. Didn't consult me. And you ran. I told him no. He said the territory was bigger than me. I said the territory could go to hell. He didn't find it funny. She touched the wound. Sent 2 enforcers to bring me back. I disagreed. One of them gave me this. I gave her something worse. Thatcher set his coffee down. His hands were shaking. Different now. Not the old shake. Something new. The tremor of a man who just realized the ground under his feet was thinner than he thought. If he finds out you're here. When, Dessa said. Not if, when. Those yellow eyes held his. I wasn't going to tell you. I was going to heal and leave, and it wouldn't matter. But your daughter got sick, and I stayed, and now it matters. Why now? Because your daughter calls me by name. Because she made me a chair out of a box today and sat me at your table. Because I've been in this house 2 days and I already feel more at home than I did in 24 years with my father. Silence. You should know the price of that, Dessa said. Because when he comes, and he will, it won't be a polite request. How long do we have? His scouts will find me eventually. Week, maybe 2, then 4 days for the message to reach him. 6 weeks if we're lucky, maybe less. How many will he bring? 20, 30, however many it takes. The kitchen was very quiet. The fire popped. Somewhere outside, Mayor shifted in the barn. You could leave, Thatcher said. Dessa looked at him. I could, tonight, before anyone. You could. Thatcher answered honestly. Yes. God, yes. Take this danger out of his house and his daughter's life. Let him go back to being invisible, back to being the man who doesn't intervene, who keeps his head down, who lets things happen. Because stopping things required a kind of courage he'd already proven he lacked. But Dessa had said it that first morning. Some debts don't have numbers. And this debt, this woman, this house, this daughter who was watching from the stairs wasn't a debt he could count or discard. It was the weight his back was starting to get used to carrying. No, he said, the word surprised him as much as it surprised her. A word of courage from a man whose hands wouldn't stop shaking. Dessa looked at him. Really looked. Something moved behind her eyes. 2 days, she said. Your daughter hit a fence post. Your stitches are holding tighter. And you just told a warlord's daughter she can stay in your house while an army comes to take her. Sounds worse when you say it out loud. It is worse. I know. Then why? Thatcher looked at his daughter on the stairs. 8 years old, listening to everything, learning what it means to stand or to run. Because some debts don't have numbers, he said, and this one's mine. Lark came down the rest of the stairs. Ours, she corrected. The debt is ours. She sat at the table between them. Dessa saved me. That means we save her. That's how it works. That's not how the world works, sweetheart. Then the world's wrong and we're going to fix it. 8 years old, barefoot, defiant. Thatcher looked at Dessa. Dessa looked back. Neither of them said what they were both thinking, that this 8-year-old had more courage than both of them combined, that she was going to get them all killed, that they were going to let her try anyway. Because some debts don't have numbers, you just carry them. The next 3 weeks were quiet, the kind of quiet where nothing happens on the surface while everything changes underneath. Dessa healed. The stitches held. The wound closed clean. By the end of week 1, she could walk without pain. By week 2, she could move normally. By week 3, you'd never know she'd been shot unless you saw the scar. She didn't leave. Every morning, Thatcher expected to wake up and find her gone. Every morning, she was still there, at the table, drinking coffee, teaching Lark something new. How to track animals in dust, how to read weather in clouds, how to throw a knife so it sticks. Thatcher went to his forge, worked iron the way he'd worked it for 12 years, badly, inefficiently, with more force than finesse. Dessa would appear in the doorway, watch him work, shake her head. You're doing it wrong. I've been smithing for 12 years. And you've been doing it wrong for 12 years. Strike from the elbow, not the shoulder. You're wasting half your strength beating the anvil instead of shaping the metal. How do you know smithing? My father owns 3 territories. You don't control that much land without controlling the people who make things. I grew up around forges. Watched smiths who could make a blade sing. You're making yours scream. She showed him. Elbow strike, wrist flex, through the metal, not on it. The difference was immediate. Cleaner work, less effort. The iron responding like it had been waiting for someone to understand how it wanted to be shaped. Better, Dessa said. Still human, Thatcher replied, but better. The town noticed. Of course they did. Small towns notice everything. The stranger in the blacksmith's house, the woman who walked through Mill Creek with his daughter like she belonged there. The sound coming from his forge that was different, cleaner, more professional. Some people closed their shutters when Dessa walked past. Some opened their doors. The town was choosing sides before the war had even started. Mrs. Brennan stopped Lark outside the bakery on the morning of October 23rd, 9 days since Thatcher had found Dessa. Dear, she said, voice dripping concern like honey from a poison jar. Is that creature bothering you? Lark looked up at her, 8 years old, eyes older. Which creature? Be more specific. I live with a blacksmith who burns porridge. The stranger, dear. Her name is Dessa. She taught me to throw knives. Mrs. Brennan's face went red. She turned and walked away fast. Lark whistled her way home with fresh bread. 2 more visitors came that week. Pete Sawyer, who owed Thatcher money for a gate hinge, suddenly couldn't pay. Needed more time. Maybe next month. His eyes wouldn't meet Thatcher's when he said it. Maud Griffin, who'd brought pies every week after Elena died, now crossed the street when she saw Thatcher coming. The town was deciding. Choosing sides in a war nobody had declared yet. On the morning of October 28th, 14 days since the rescue, someone left a dead crow on the porch. Lark found it before Thatcher did. She stood looking at it for a long time, just staring. The way you stare at a thing you're trying to understand. Thatcher came out, coffee in hand, and stopped. Black feathers, broken neck, placed carefully on the worn boards right where you'd step, coming out the door. It's a message, Lark said. It's a dead bird. It's a message, Dad. I read Mr. Hadley's books. Dead animals on doorsteps mean get out or you're next. Mr. Hadley writes fantasy stories. Mr. Hadley writes what people wish they could do. Dessa came out, looked at the crow, picked it up by one wing, carried it to the yard, and started plucking feathers with professional efficiency. What are you doing? Thatcher asked. Crow soup. You can't eat a dead crow. You can eat anything if you're motivated enough. Besides, someone plucked it. Someone went to the trouble of delivering it. Would be rude not to use it. Lark watched fascinated. Is crow good? Terrible. But it makes a point. What point? That threats are just free groceries if you don't fear them. Dessa built a fire in the yard, used Thatcher's worst pot, the one with the dent. The smell was unholy, like death had learned to cook and decided to make it everyone's problem. Mrs. Brennan saw the smoke from her window, closed her curtains tight. Lark tried a bite when it was done, made a face that could curdle milk. This is the worst thing I've ever tasted, she announced. Worse than your dad's porridge. Don't exaggerate. Dessa ate the rest without expression. Every bite, while the whole town watched smoke rise from the yard where the blacksmith's strange guest cooked the threat someone left on his doorstep. Nobody left anything on the porch again. The message was received. November 1st, 18 days. Dessa taught Lark to track. Behind the barn in mud from yesterday's rain prints, told stories if you knew how to listen. Mr. Fox, Dessa said, pointing. Neighbor's dog. How do you know it's a guya, not a coyote? Gait, dogs walk different. Confident. Coyotes are careful. This one walked like he owned the place. Lark knelt in the mud studying the prints the way scholars study ancient text. Show me more, Dessa showed her rabbit. Showed her where a bird had landed and taken off. Showed her the difference between coming and going, between walking and running, between calm and fear. Everything leaves a mark, Dessa said. You just have to know what you're looking at. They moved to knife throwing after. Lark had been practicing, had a skinning blade Dessa had given her, dull edge, couldn't cut butter, but balanced right for learning. She threw, missed. The blade hit dirt 2 feet left of the fence post she was aiming for. You're holding your breath, Dessa said. Am not. You are, watch. Dessa took the knife, breathed out slow, threw. The blade stuck dead center in the post. See? That's not fair. You are bigger. Has nothing to do with size. Has everything to do with breathing. You hold your breath, your body tenses. Tension pulls your throw off. Breathe out as you release. Let the knife go with the breath. Lark tried. Breathed out. Threw. The blade hit the post. Not center, but close. Closer than before. Better, Dessa said. Lark retrieved the blade. Tried again and again, each throw getting closer. On the 7th try, she hit dead center. Silence. Then Lark screamed. Not fear, victory, pure 8-year-old triumph. She ran to yank the knife free, came back grinning so wide her face couldn't contain it. Thatcher watched from the forge doorway, his daughter, who hadn't smiled like that in 3 years, who'd learned to live in careful measurements and quiet grief, screaming with joy because she hit a fence post, because a stranger with yellow eyes told her to breathe. Some lessons you can't teach with words. Some healing doesn't come from medicine. That night, November 1st, Lark asked Dessa about her mother. They were in the kitchen, Thatcher pretending to read, Lark pretending to do nothing. Dessa sharpening her broken blade with a whetstone she'd found in the forge. What was she like? Lark asked. Your mom. Dessa's hands didn't stop moving. Blade across stone. Rhythm older than language. Strong, she said finally. Not strong like lifting things, strong like standing in storms. She was a healer, could look at you and know what was wrong before you opened your mouth. Like how you knew I had fever. Like that. Where is she now? Dead 5 years. Took a bullet meant for someone else. The stone kept moving. The blade kept getting sharper. Does it stop hurting? Lark asked. Dessa looked at her, really looked. The way you look at someone asking a question they need answered true. No, she said, but you get used to the shape of it. Carry it different. Still there, just doesn't cut the same. Lark nodded, 8 years old and understanding things she shouldn't have to. Mom died 3 years ago, she said. Sometimes I forget what her voice sounded like. That scares me more than anything. You'll remember when it matters, Dessa said. The important parts stick. Trust that. Thatcher's book blurred. He didn't look up. Some conversations you're not supposed to hear but need to anyway. The scouts came on November 8th, 25 days since the rescue. Thatcher was in the forge. Dessa was showing Lark how to read weather in the sky. Which clouds meant rain, which meant nothing, which meant run. Dessa stopped mid-sentence, head tilted, nostrils working, the same stance Mayer took that night on the road. Not scared, alert. Inside, she said. Why? Inside now. Her voice had changed, gone hard. Command voice. The voice of someone who'd survived by knowing when to listen to their instincts. Lark ran. Dessa walked to the forge. Thatcher saw her face, put down his hammer. 3 riders, she said. Southwest Ridge, Rourke colors. You can see them from here. I can smell them, leather, gun oil, the particular stink of men who get paid to hurt people. They watched from the forge window, 3 shapes on the ridge. Horses, sitting still, looking down at Mill Creek, at the smoke from Thatcher's chimney, at the shadow of a woman in the forge doorway. One of them raised a fist, held it. They turned their horses north. They saw me, Dessa said. Yes, they'll report. They'll... How long? 4 days to reach my father's own territory. 2 days for him to gather men and ride south. 6 weeks from today if we're lucky. November 25th at the earliest, maybe sooner if he moves fast. 6 weeks, Thatcher said. Dessa leaned against the doorframe, hand on her scar. The wound was healed, but muscle memory kept her hand there anyway. I can leave tonight, she said. Be gone before... No. Thatcher, I said no, 6 weeks. That gives us time. And time for what? To tell the town, to prepare, to make a choice. The town will hand me over. Maybe. Definitely. We'll see. That night, November 8th, Thatcher called a town meeting. He put up notices on the church door, the general store, the post office, emergency meeting. 8 p.m., everyone welcome. 32 people showed up in the barn they used as a church on Sundays. Martin Beck in front, arms crossed, face already made up before a word was spoken. Mrs. Brennan by the door knitting furiously, needles clicking like insect mandibles. Eleanor Hayes in the back, 81 years old, widow, mostly deaf, but she came. Thatcher stood at the front, his hands shook. He put them in his pockets. The woman staying in my house is named Dessa Roark, he said. Her father is Cormac Roark. He controls territory from here to the border. In 6 weeks, he'll arrive with his men to take her back. Silence. Then Beck stood. You brought a warlord's daughter to this town. I brought a wounded woman to my house. Same thing. Not the same thing. Beck looked around, making sure everyone saw his outrage, performing fury for an audience. The man who can't fix his own roof is going to stand against Cormac Roark. He laughed. Others laughed with him. Not good enough, Thatcher. She's a person, Martin. She's a criminal's daughter. Those aren't two different things. They're completely different things. My cousin died because of people like her. People who think laws don't apply, who take what they want and call it business. He bled out in a ditch because he got between Rourke's men and a shipment they wanted. Beck's voice cracked. So don't stand there and tell me what's a person and what's not. Thatcher had no answer for that. He never had answers. Elena had answers. Would have known exactly what to say, how to make people see. Lark had answers. 8 years old and sharper than most adults. Thatcher just had silence and shaking hands. Then a voice from the back, old, creaky, but clear enough. What did she do? Everyone turned. Eleanor Hayes. So quiet, most people forgot she was there. The girl, Eleanor said. What did she do to anyone here? Silence. She fixed his forge equipment, taught him smithing better than he learned in 12 years. Cooked a crow someone left on his porch to scare them. Lark appeared in the doorway, uninvited, unannounced. And she saved me when I had fever, Lark said. Used medicine nobody else here knew, sat with me all night. Didn't have to. Did it anyway. Lark, Thatcher said. Go home. No. She walked forward, stood next to her father, 8 years old, barefoot, jaw set like iron. Eleanor stood, her knees cracked loud enough to hear in the back row. A warlord is coming, whether we hand her over or not, she said. If we hand her over, we're the kind of people who trade a person for safety, who do what's easy instead of what's right. And if we don't, Beck demanded, we'll be dead. Maybe, Eleanor said, but my husband died in the border wars. I spent 30 years hating people I never met. Didn't bring him back, just made me old and bitter. She looked around the barn, met eyes, held them. I'm done being bitter, she said. It's not interesting anymore. Nobody voted, people just left. Some went out the front, some out the back. The direction they chose told you everything. The next 4 weeks split the town down the middle. Half the houses closed their shutters when Thatcher walked past. Half opened their doors. Mrs. Aldrin brought fresh herbs. Didn't say a word. Just left them on the porch and walked away. Tommy Aldrin stacked firewood by Thatcher's forge. Worked in silence. Left before Thatcher could thank him. Pete Sawyer came back on November 15th. Can't fight, he said. Bad leg from a car accident. But I can stand on your porch when they come. That doesn't make sense, Pete. Don't care. I'll be here anyway. Dessa spent those weeks in the forge with Thatcher, teaching him what she'd learned watching her father's smiths. Techniques passed down through generations. Ways of working metal that made it sing instead of scream. Strike from the elbow, not the shoulder, she said for the 100th time. Flex your wrist at the peak. Through the metal, not on it. Let the hammer fall through the work. Thatcher tried. The difference was immediate. Cleaner strike. Less wasted effort. The iron responding like it had been waiting for someone to hit it right. Better, Dessa said. Still human, Thatcher replied, but better. On November 20th, 5 days before the deadline, Thatcher made a gate hinge that was actually beautiful. He set it on the anvil and stared at it. Dessa looked over his shoulder. It's a hinge, she said. You're looking at it like it's your firstborn. It's the first thing I've made that doesn't look like I made it angry. 12 years and you're just now figuring that out. I had bad teachers. You had no teachers. There's a difference. She picked up the hinge, turned it in her hands, tested the weight, the balance, the way the pin moved in the barrel. Your wife would be proud, she said quietly. Elena didn't care about hinges. She cared about you doing things right. This is right. Dessa set it back on the anvil. Some debts don't have numbers, Thatcher. You can't count them. You just carry them until your back gets used to the shape. Is that what we're doing, getting used to the shape? Maybe, or maybe we're learning that the weight gets lighter when more than one person carries it. That night, November 20th, Dessa told him about her mother. They were sitting on the porch, Lark asleep inside, the desert cooling after another furnace day. 5 days left until Cormac's deadline. She was a healer, Dessa said. Real one. Not just herbs and bandages. She could look at you and see what was broken. Not just body, soul too. How'd she die? Took a bullet meant for my father. Some dispute over territory. Man came to kill Cormac. Mom stepped between them. Said nobody dies today. Man shot her anyway. Dessa's jaw worked. Dad killed him, then killed his family. Then burned their compound to ash. Said it was justice. Mom would have said it was waste. She didn't take that bullet so he could make more widows. You blame him. I blame both of them. Him for starting wars. Her for thinking she could stop them by standing in the way. Bullets don't care about good intentions. Is that why you ran? I ran because he tried to trade me like a poker chip, but yeah, also that. I'm done standing in front of bullets meant for someone else. They sat in silence. Crickets, distant coyote, the particular quiet of desert nights. Your wife, Dessa said. Elena, how'd she die? Thatcher's hands started shaking harder. Fever, he said, came on fast. She told me her chest hurt. I said it was probably nothing. Probably just a cold. 3 days later, she couldn't breathe right. I finally called the doctor. He came, but it was too late. Infection in her lungs, needed hospital treatment 2 days earlier. Not your fault. I froze Dessa. She was dying and I froze. Couldn't make the decision. Kept thinking maybe tomorrow she'd be better. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe. By the time I stopped thinking and started acting, she was gone. And your hands have been shaking since. Yeah. Guilt does that, Dessa said. Makes your body remember. Every time you have to make a decision, your hands remember the last time you got it wrong. How do I make them stop? You don't. You just make decisions anyway. Do it enough times, maybe they learn a new memory. She stood. 5 days left, she said. Your hands are going to shake. You're going to want to freeze. Going to want to think instead of act. Don't. Whatever happens, don't freeze. And if I do, then we'll both find out what it's like to live with more regret. She went inside. Thatcher sat alone on his porch. Tomorrow was November 21st. 4 days until Cormac Rourke arrived with over 20 armed men. A town divided, a daughter watching to see what kind of man her father would be, and hands that wouldn't stop shaking. He looked at them in the starlight, trembling like leaves. Some debts don't have numbers, he said to the night. You just carry them. His hands kept shaking, but morning was coming anyway. And with it, the reckoning, November 25th, 2014. Dawn came cold and clear. 42 days since Thatcher Kane pulled a bleeding stranger from a ditch on Route 77. 6 weeks to the day. Thatcher was already awake, hadn't really slept, just laid in bed listening to the house settle, to Lark's breathing in the next room, to Dessa moving around upstairs like a caged animal that knew the cage door was about to open. He made coffee, burned it, made it again. Lark came down dressed for war, which for an 8-year-old meant jeans boots and a flannel shirt 3 sizes too big that used to be her mother's. Today, she asked, today. You scared, terrified. Good. Mom always said the brave ones are the ones who are scared and do it anyway. Your mom was smarter than me. Everyone's smarter than you, Dad, but you try hard, that counts. Dessa came down an hour later. She'd cleaned her scar, changed clothes, put on boots that looked less like a person bleeding in a ditch and more like a person ready to face what was coming. She looked at Thatcher, at Lark, at the kitchen that had become something close to home. "You can still change your mind," she said. "Both of you. Lock the door. Tell them you don't know where I went. I can be gone in an hour." "No," Thatcher said. "No," Lark echoed. "Why, this isn't your fight." "Because you made me bread," Lark said simply. "Because you saved me when I was sick. Because you taught me to throw a knife and breathe at the same time. Because you're here and we said you could stay and we meant it." Dessa looked at Thatcher. "That your reason too," that Thatcher said. "And because I spent 3 years frozen, making no decisions, taking no risks, being the man who lets things happen instead of making them happen. Today I'm making something happen, even if my hands shake, even if I'm scared, even if it's the wrong choice. It might be. I know, but it's my choice. That's what matters." At 10:17 a.m. they heard the engines. Not horses like Thatcher expected. Trucks. 4 of them. Coming down the main road into Mill Creek like a convoy, like an invasion force, like exactly what they were. They stopped in the town square. 23 men got out, armed, not hiding it, rifles, handguns. The casual display of violence that said, "We're here and we're not asking permission." From the last truck, a man stepped down who made the others look small by comparison. Not because of cynicism, because of presence. Cormac Rourke was 52 years old, built like he'd been carved from desert stone, face weathered by sun and violence in equal measure, eyes that had seen things and decided they were acceptable costs. He stood in the square, looked at the houses, at the people watching from windows, at Thatcher's forge, at the porch where Thatcher stood with his daughter, at the doorway where Dessa appeared. "Dessa," he said, one word, her name, in it everything. Father and warlord, love and possession, the man who'd raised her and the man who'd tried to sell her. All of it wrapped in 3 syllables. "Father," Dessa replied. Thatcher stepped forward. His hands were shaking. His knees felt like water. But he stepped forward anyway. "It's my porch," he said. 23 armed men, 1 blacksmith, 1 8-year-old, 1 woman with a half-healed gunshot scar, and 6 weeks of preparation that was about to be tested. Cormac Rourke looked at Thatcher Kane like a man looks at an insect. Then he smiled. Not a nice smile. "Blacksmith," he said, "we need to talk about what belongs to who." Thatcher's hands shook as he walked down the porch steps. Every instinct screamed at him to go back inside, lock the door, hide. Let the big man with the guns and the reputation take what he came for and leave Mill Creek standing. The same instinct that had kept him frozen while Elena died. The same instinct that had turned him into a ghost for 3 years. His legs moved anyway. 23 armed men watched him cross his own yard like he was walking to his execution. Maybe he was. Hard to tell the difference when you're the one walking. Cormac Rourke stood in the center like gravity had decided he was the fixed point around which everything else orbited. 52 years old, weathered face, scars that told stories Thatcher didn't want to hear, eyes that had made hard decisions and slept fine afterward. This was a man who controlled 3 states through fear and reputation. Thatcher was a blacksmith who couldn't fix his own roof. The math didn't work, but Thatcher kept walking anyway. "Mr. Rourke," he said when he was 10 feet away. "Blacksmith." Cormac's voice was gravel and cigarettes and authority that didn't ask permission. "You're standing between me and my daughter. I'm standing on my property." Semantics. Law. Cormac smiled, not friendly, the way a shark smiles at a seal that thinks the beach is close enough. "Law's a suggestion out here, son. I'm the reality." "Not on my porch, you're not." The armed men shifted, hands moving toward weapons, reading their boss for signals. Cormac raised one hand. They stopped. "You got spine," Cormac said. "Stupid spine, but spine. I respect that. Makes this harder." "Makes what harder?" "Deciding whether to burn your house down or just make you watch while I take her." Thatcher's hands shook harder. His mouth went dry, but he didn't move. "You'd do that," he said. "Burn a man's house in front of his daughter because your own daughter said no to you." "I'd do worse for less." "I believe you." "Then step aside." "No," Cormac studied him, really looked. The way you look at a puzzle you can't quite figure. "Why date Bon?" he asked. "She's nothing to you. You don't know her." "Don't owe her. She showed up bleeding on your doorstep 6 weeks ago. Now you're ready to die for her. That makes sense to you." "No," Thatcher said honestly. "Doesn't make sense at all." "Then why?" "Because I spent 3 years not standing up when it mattered. 3 years frozen while my wife died because I couldn't make myself act fast enough. 3 years being the man who lets things happen instead of making choices." Today I'm making a choice. Bad choice. Maybe, but it's mine. Cormac's jaw worked. Something moved behind his eyes. Not respect. Recognition, maybe. The look of one broken man seeing pieces of himself in another. Your wife, he said. How'd she die? Fever, lung infection. I waited too long to get help. By the time I stopped being scared and started acting, she was gone. And now you're trying to make up for it. Yeah, I'm trying to not be that man anymore. By getting yourself killed. If that's what it takes. Silence. The town watched from windows. Thatcher's heart hammered so hard he could hear it in his ears. Behind him on the porch, Lark stood frozen. 8 years old, watching her father do something she'd never seen him do before. Stand. Dessa moved, came down the porch steps, walked past Thatcher, stood between him and her father. Enough, she said. Cormac's face changed when he looked at her. All the hardness cracked. Just for a second. Just long enough to see the father underneath the warlord. Dessa, you came all this way for nothing. I came for you. I'm not going back. The Alliance can go to hell. I'm not a bargaining chip. I'm not a treaty you sign. I'm your daughter. Which is why you're coming home. Home, Dessa's voice cracked. You made me a prisoner and called it protection. Made me property and called it family. That's not home. That's a cage with pretty bars. Cormac flinched. Actual physical flinch, like she'd hit him. Everything I did was to keep you safe. Everything you did was to keep your empire growing. Don't lie to yourself. Don't insult me by lying to me. Your mother. Mom would hate what you've become. What you tried to make me become. She took a bullet meant for you because she believed in something better. You turned her sacrifice into an excuse to build an empire on violence. Cormac's hands clenched. Don't, he said, voice low and dangerous. Don't talk about your mother like you knew what she wanted. I knew her better than you did. She spent 5 years trying to get you to stop, to choose family over territory, over reputation, over whatever the hell you thought you were building. She died trying to make you see. She died because someone shot her. She died because you made so many enemies that someone felt justified. Don't pretend that's different. The square was silent. 23 armed men stood frozen watching their boss argue with his daughter in a way that made everyone uncomfortable. Thatcher stood beside Dessa, hands shaking, knees weak, but standing. Cormac looked at them both, at Dessa, at Thatcher. At the porch where an 8-year-old girl watched with eyes too old for her age. You'll stay here, he said finally, with him, the blacksmith who can barely stand straight, in this town that's already turning on you. You'll choose this over everything I built, over family, over security, over knowing you're protected. I'll choose freedom, Dessa said, over everything else. That's what Mom would have chosen. Your mother chose me, and regretted it every day until it killed her. Cormac stepped back like he'd been struck. His face went hard again. The cracks sealed over, the warlord returning. If you stay here, he said slowly, you're on your own, no protection, no resources, no family. I have family, Dessa said quietly. She didn't look back, didn't gesture, but the meaning was clear. Thatcher, Lark, this broken house with the leaking roof and the table that still smelled like lavender soap. Cormac saw it, understood it, hated it. You're making a mistake, he said. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. Cormac looked at Thatcher. You, he said, blacksmith. Sir, you fail her. You let anything happen to her. If this town turns on her, if she suffers, if she needs anything and you can't provide it. He stepped closer. Thatcher's whole body wanted to run. He stood anyway. I come back, Cormac finished, and I don't stop at your porch. I don't ask nicely. I don't give second chances. Understood. Yes, sir. You think you can protect her with your shaking hands and your broken forge and your house that's falling apart. No, sir. That stopped Cormac. No. I can't protect her, Thatcher said. I can barely protect my daughter. Can't fix my own roof. Can't stop my hands from shaking. But I can give her a choice. Can give her a place where she's not property, where she's not a bargaining chip, where she's just Dessa. That's not enough. Maybe not, but it's what I have. Cormac stared at him for a long moment. Then incredibly he laughed. Not a happy laugh, the laugh of a man who's seen the joke and it's on him. My daughter, he said, runs away from everything I built, everything I can offer, security, power. protection, and chooses a blacksmith with shaking hands in a house that's falling apart. He looked at Dessa. Your mother would have loved this, he said quietly, would have said I deserved it. That I earned it by trying to control instead of trust, by trying to protect instead of letting go. She would have, Dessa agreed. She was always smarter than me, in every way that mattered. Cormac's shoulders sagged, just slightly, just enough to see the 52 years and the weight of every decision he'd made to get here. You're staying, he said. Not a question anymore. I'm staying. With him. With them. And there's nothing I can say. Nothing. Cormac nodded slowly, turned to his men. Back in the trucks, he said, we're leaving. They stared at him. Sir, I said we're leaving. Rourke doesn't abandon blood. She wants to stay. She stays. But she's still Rourke, still family. Anyone touches her, they answer to me. Spread the word. Boss, spread. On. The men moved to the trucks. Cormac turned back to Dessa one last time. Your mother's remedy, he said, the lungwort compound. You used it on the girl. Dessa blinked. How did you? One of my scouts reported smoke from this chimney 3 weeks ago. Distinctive smell. Your mother's workshop smelled like that. Lungwort and elderflower. I'd know it anywhere. He paused. I tracked you by the smell of your mother's medicine, he said. She'd find that funny. Probably say it meant something. That the universe was telling me what path you chose. What would she say it meant? That I should let you go. That I should trust you to make your own choices. That love means letting people choose their own path even when it scares you. His voice cracked on the last word. She was always braver than me, he finished. Dad, no. He held up a hand. I don't get to be dad anymore. I lost that right when I tried to trade you for territory. But Cormac Rourke doesn't abandon family. You need anything. Anything. You send word. I'll come. Even if I choose to stay here. Especially if you choose to stay here. Because that means you're happy. And your mother would want that more than anything. He climbed into his truck, paused with one hand on the door. Blacksmith, he called. Sir, your hands shake. Yes, sir. My daughter's mother, her hands shook too. When she was scared, when she was making hard choices. She did her best work with shaking hands. Saved more lives than I can count. Don't let the shaking stop you. No, sir. Oh, and fix your goddamn roof. Man can't protect anyone if his house is falling apart. The truck started. 23 armed men who'd come to take Dessa home drove away without her. Cormac Rourke sat in the passenger seat of the lead truck, staring straight ahead, not looking back. The convoy rolled out of Mill Creek the same way it came in, like a storm that decided not to break. When the dust settled, 32 people stood in windows and doorways watching. Nobody cheered. Nobody thanked Thatcher. Small towns don't work like that. They just absorb what happened and file it away and keep living. But something had changed. Thatcher felt it in the way people looked at him. Not respect exactly. Recognition, maybe. The blacksmith who couldn't fix his roof had stood up to Cormac Rourke and lived. That counted for something. That night, the three of them sat at the kitchen table. Thatcher had tried to cook, made something that might have been stew in a previous life. Now it was more like regret in liquid form. Dessa looked at her bowl. This is inedible. It's stew. It's a war crime, Thatcher. I'm being polite. Someone more honest would call it evidence of malice. Lark poked at hers. She's right, Dad. This is bad even for you. Thank you both. We're helping. By insulting my cooking. Someone has to, Dessa said. If we don't, you'll think this is acceptable. I'll cook tomorrow, Lark announced. You're 8, and already a better cook than you. That's not an achievement, Dad. That's basic survival. Despite everything, or maybe because of everything, Thatcher laughed. Actual laugh, the kind he hadn't managed in 3 years. Dessa and Lark stared at him. What? He said. You laughed, Lark said, wonder in her voice. You actually laughed. Food's terrible enough to be funny. No, Dessa shook her head. This is the first time I've heard you laugh. In 6 weeks, not once, until now. Thatcher realized she was right. 3 years of grief and guilt and frozen silence. 6 weeks with a stranger who became family. And tonight laughing over terrible stew. Your mother would hate this stew too, he said to Lark. Mom would have fixed it, added something, made it work. She was magic like that. She was. They ate in silence for a while. Not comfortable silence. The silence of people who'd been through something and were still processing what it meant. Finally, Lark looked at Dessa. Are you staying? She asked. The question hung in the air. Dessa set down her spoon. I don't know, she said honestly, For now, until things change or stay the same. That's not an answer. It's the only honest one I have. Your father stood up to my father today. The town saw it. They saw me stay. That changes things. I don't know how yet, but it does. But you want to stay? I want to stay, Dessa admitted, but wanting and being able to aren't always the same thing. Lark considered this with the seriousness of an 8-year-old who'd learned early that life doesn't promise happy endings. Okay, she said finally, but while you're here, you're family. That means you get a chair. I have a chair. A real chair, not a box. The next morning, Lark dragged a wooden chair from the spare room, Elena's sewing chair. The one with the carved back and the cushion she'd made herself. She put it at the table, between her seat and the empty place that had been Elena's. Dessa stared at it. Lark, Mom's not using it, Lark said simply. You are, so it's yours now. Your father might. Dad doesn't get a vote. This is my decision. Sit. Dessa sat. The chair fit her perfectly. Thatcher came down for breakfast and stopped. Saw Dessa in Elena's chair. Saw Lark watching him, daring him to object. Saw the table that had been for two becoming a table for three. Good, he said quietly. That chair shouldn't stay empty. He poured coffee, made oatmeal that was actually edible. The three of them ate breakfast together as morning light came through the window at the angle Elena used to call truth hour, when the sun was too low to make anything look better than it was. But sometimes Thatcher thought things don't need to look better. Sometimes they just need to be real. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. The town slowly accepted what had happened. Not because they forgave. Small towns don't work like that. But because Dessa made herself useful. Fixed things, taught skills, helped where help was needed. Slowly, grudgingly, people stopped crossing the street when they saw her. Started nodding instead. Started saying good morning. Pete Sawyer's daughter got sick in early December. Fever. Bad one. Dessa showed up at his door with lungwort and elderflower. Saved the girl. Pete never mentioned the money he owed Thatcher again. Paid it back in labor instead. Fixed the roof, patched the walls, made the house solid. Eleanor Hayes fell in her kitchen one winter morning. Dessa found her, carried her home, set her broken wrist using techniques her mother had taught her. Eleanor lived another 3 years after that. Told everyone who'd listen that Dessa Rourke had gentler hands than any doctor she'd ever met. Lark grew, learned knife throwing until she could hit a fence post at 20 yards. Learned tracking, learned reading weather, learned all the things Dessa knew. Learned also that family isn't always the people you were born to. Sometimes it's the people who choose you, and sometimes you choose them back. 10 years later, November 25th, 2024. Thatcher Kane was 48 years old. His hands still shook. Probably always would. But he'd learned what Dessa told him that first week. Shaking hands can still do good work. You just do it anyway. His forge was the best in 3 counties now. People came from far away for his work. The blacksmith who couldn't fix his roof had become the blacksmith who could fix anything. Dessa was 34, still lived in the house, still sat in Elena's chair at breakfast. Had her own room now. The guest room she'd recovered in that first week was hers permanently. Pictures on the walls, books on the shelves, a life built in the spaces between. She'd started teaching. Young people came to learn healing. Tracking. The old skills people thought they didn't need until they did. She taught them all. Passed on what her mother taught her. Made sure the knowledge didn't die. Lark was 18, about to leave for college, pre-med, going to become a doctor. Going to save lives the way Dessa had saved hers. The night before she left, they sat at the table. The 3 of them. The table that had been Elena's. That belonged to all of them now. I named something today, Lark said. Named what? Thatcher asked. The knife, the first one Dessa gave me, the skinning blade with the dull edge, the one I learned with. I named it. What did you call it? Elena. Silence. Thatcher's coffee cup stopped halfway to his mouth. Dessa's hands stilled. After your mom, Lark continued, because that knife taught me it's okay to be dull around the edges, to be learning, to be not quite ready, but trying anyway. Mom was like that. Always learning, always trying, always telling you it was okay to not be perfect. Her eyes met her father's. And because the knife I learned with should have Mom's name. Seemed right. Thatcher's eyes burned. She'd love that, he said, voice rough. She'd absolutely love that. I know. Dessa looked at Lark, at Thatcher, at the kitchen that had become something neither of them expected that night 10 years ago when a bleeding stranger appeared on their doorstep. You're a strange kid, she said. I learned from strange people, Lark replied. I've been here 10 years, Dessa said, like she was just realizing it. 10 years. Started as one night, became 6 weeks, became this. You complaining? Thatcher asked. No, opposite of complaining, whatever that is. Grateful, Lark supplied. That's the word. They sat in comfortable silence. Outside, the desert cooled. Stars came out, the same stars that had watched Thatcher pull a bleeding stranger from a ditch 10 years ago. Dad, Lark said. Yeah, your hands are shaking. I know. That's okay. You know that, right? The shaking doesn't mean you're broken, just means you're human. Mom used to say that. Said the bravest people are the ones who do things even when they're shaking. Your mom was smarter than all of us. Obviously, Dessa stood, started clearing dishes. I'll wash, she said. You two sit, talk. Father-daughter moment before she leaves tomorrow. She went to the sink, started washing while humming something low, a tune that smelled like pine smoke and cold mountain air, the song her mother used to sing. Thatcher watched her. This woman who'd shown up bleeding and broken, who'd stayed when she could have run, who'd become family without anyone quite noticing when it happened. Some debts don't have numbers, he said quietly. Dessa turned. What? Something you said that first week. Some debts don't have numbers. You just carry them until your back gets used to the shape. I remember. I think my back got used to it. The shape. Doesn't hurt anymore. Feels like it belongs there. Dessa smiled. Real smile. Not the careful one she used with strangers. The one she saved for people who mattered. Yeah, she said. Mine too. That night after Lark went to bed, Thatcher sat on the porch. Same porch where he'd stood facing Cormac Rourke 10 years ago. Dessa came out, sat beside him. They watched the desert in silence. You ever regret it? Thatcher asked. Staying, choosing this instead of everything else. Every day, Dessa said. He looked at her. She smiled. I regret not doing it sooner. Regret spending 24 years in a cage thinking it was protection. Regret not realizing earlier that freedom looks like a broken-down house with a leaking roof and a blacksmith whose hands shake. House doesn't leak anymore. Pete fixed the roof. Still broken down, though. Little bit. I like it broken down. Means there's always something to fix. Always something to do. Always a reason to stay. They sat in silence. Somewhere in the distance, coyotes called. Mayor answered from the barn with a snort that said she wasn't impressed. Lark leaves tomorrow, Thatcher said. Yep. House is going to be quiet. Yep. Just the two of us. Terrifying thought. Little bit. Dessa laughed. 10 years, she said. You pulled me out of a ditch, sewed me up with cotton thread and shaking hands. Let me stay when anyone sane would have sent me packing. Stood up to my father, gave me a place at your table. You saved my daughter. Taught me how to work metal properly. Cooked crow to make a point. Made Lark smile for the first time in 3 years. We're quite a pair. Broken blacksmith and runaway daughter. Sounds like a country song. Terrible country song. Best kind. Thatcher's hands rested on his knees, shaking, always shaking. Dessa put her hand over his. They're still doing it, she said. Yeah. Still carrying you anyway. Yeah. Good. Means you're still human, still scared. Still doing it anyway, that's all that matters. She stood. Getting late, should sleep. Big day tomorrow. Sending our girl off to save the world. Our girl, Thatcher repeated. Yeah, ours. You raised her. I helped. We both get to claim credit when she's a famous doctor. She went inside. Thatcher sat alone on his porch. His hands shook in the starlight. 10 years ago, they'd shaken while he sewed up a stranger. While he stood up to a warlord. While he chose to stand instead of freeze. They shook now while he realized something that should have been obvious. He wasn't alone anymore. Hadn't been for 10 years. The stranger had stayed. The runaway had found home. The broken pieces had fitted together in ways none of them planned. Some debts don't have numbers, he said to the night. You just carry them. And sometimes if you're lucky, someone helps you carry them. And that weight becomes the way you stand. And the way you stand becomes enough. His hands kept shaking, but he stood anyway, same as he had for 10 years, same as he would for however many more he had left. Inside, Dessa turned off the lights. In her room, Lark packed for college. In the barn, Mayor settled in for the night. The house that had been too empty for 3 years was full again, not with the people Thatcher expected. but with the people he needed, the ones who chose him, the ones he chose back. And in the morning when Lark left for school, they'd stand on that porch together, Thatcher with his shaking hands, Dessa with her yellow eyes and her mother's wisdom, watching their girl drive away to save the world, because that's what families do. They stand together, even when they shake, especially when they shake. The brave ones do it anyway.